My ministry and myself are very committed to growing this industry. I'm a player in the tourism industry myself, so I understand the challenges that we all face as an industry. According to statistics, about 70% of the labor force, 60 to 70%, close to 70% of the labor force are women. But the question I ask myself is, where are these women in terms of power? Because I've always believed that when you have more women in power, then you achieve more.
As a foundation, we have a 70% focus on young women. And so we understand the need to empower young women, to give women agency. And so even as I say that, I want to encourage us all that sometimes when we come into leadership positions, we kind of lose touch with that empathetic side of who we are, but that superpower is so important. Please harness it and hold it tight. 60-70% of women are in the workforce and 5% are leading that workforce. Do we comfortably feel that the interests of those 60 to 70% women are represented? The safety of women is something that, of course, deeply concerns all of us. And I don't think it's lost on any of us that some of the femicide we have seen over the past few weeks have happened in short stay accommodations. And therein, again, we ask ourselves, how do we protect even our guests?
Delve us into those specific conversations, but giving the angle of how women actually get affected by climate change.
For women, the space today, one of the things that we do largely is capacity building. For Strathmore University, our role is to ensure that we are so entrepreneurial in the sense that we are able to create programs that have impact.
One of the realization that we have is that the rural population lives next to this biodiversity. And you must agree with me that deforestation is one of the major contributors to climate change.
Distant relatives is a model of how we can integrate more sustainable, more responsible, more conscious, more regenerative practices within tourism institutions.
Beyond research, beyond capacity building, how can we tap into our communities very specifically so that women know that there is something they can do to avert the effects of climate change?
There are areas which are very prone to very deep impact of climate change. But some of these areas which are really hotspots, as an association, as a university, how can we work together to co-create a plan that can actually take care of these particular populations?
So one of the solutions that can influence policy, I believe, is to have data that can convince these policymakers that unless we do this, we are finished. Our tourism is finished.
I think in terms of security, we should think beyond the high-tech surveillance systems.
As a travel agent, it is our duty to talk to our women travelers and men that when you are planning, when you're traveling, you need to plan.
In terms of regulation, for the longest time, we've not had clear regulations on a minimum standard of safety and security in the hotels.
Personally participated in the regulations for security and safety for the hotel industry at Tourism Regulatory Authority. And I think the rules are very diverse. They cover almost the lodges, they cover the big hotels and everywhere. If we don't actually take leadership of hotels seriously, quacks get into the industry and they do wrong things.
I feel like we are assuming that all people that are up to mischief are men. That could be short-sighted. And so you could be in an Uber driver with a lady and think you're safe, but she could deliver you somewhere that is not necessarily safe.
We come from a dominant culture that is meant to, in certain ways and measures, put persons with disabilities at a disadvantage. Disability Act of 2003. You talk about accessibility, people think it's only the physical build. But you forget, now we are in the digital era. For me to come to your facility, I need to interact with your product first, then know if I'm making a decision of coming there when I'm informed.
We have persons with disability in a different form, like old people. You have injured people. If somebody is walking with crutches, they need assistance, and they need facilities, they need the infrastructure to help them move around. We have children, we have people with autism. And people with autism are, like a various range of spectrum, but all of them fall under ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Some of them are actually able to travel on their own, but they have possibly anxiety. I heard somebody earlier talk about anxiety, and it's very normal. We need to change our mindset. We need to be aware. We need to educate ourselves on how we can be more inclusive in our thinking.
It's sad that we're having this conversation in 2024. It's so sad that every woman in this room has had a situation where they've had to justify the reason why they are doing what they're doing just because they're a woman.
The conversation became clear that unless we begin to cohese our conversations under a common umbrella, that is not Eva queuing at KRA saying, my name is Eva Muraya, but it is the Kenya Association of Women Business Owners opportunity queuing at KRA, then KRA starts to pay attention. Do you see? So it was the need for agency that got us to incorporate. So it was to advocate, was the reason, to push forward agendas, advocate for a more enabling environment for women. It was to build our capacities as entrepreneurs so you don't run out of cash in your business, because cash is king, so that you understand talent acquisition and retention. It was about how to market your business, how to write business plans.
Empathy is such a big thing for women, and leadership takes empathy, because you're not even only thinking about your customer, you're thinking about even your employees.
I want to challenge your community as we move from this conference. Let's ask for the right data, glean the right insights, and use those insights to either pivot, reposition, think through a product composition, but more importantly, to begin to speak truth to power and good leadership that Kenya needs to position tourism for the rest of Africa.